Here's a question for you. Can a small set be great? You say, of course. But what I'm asking is, do you think there's an alternate dimension out there where a Lego set with less than 100 pieces is designed so well, has so much playability and charm that it overshadows the likes of Dragon Fortress, Black Seas Barracuda, or Fort Lagoredo? I mean, truly great. Maybe, but we don't live in that dimension. And the 4 sets we're going to look at today aren't great. They're not bad, just not truly great. And that's okay because I don't really think they were meant to be. Sets like these often get overlooked due to their diminutive nature, but they play such an important role in a theme's overall balance and accessibility. So today, we're going to examine why that is, and give the little guys a chance to shine along the way, as we continue Season 2 of the Wild West Retrospective. Welcome to Trick Bricks. Hello everyone, I'm Jamie. Small sets. The most difficult thing to showcase in an interesting manner. For me at least. But as I mentioned in the intro, these types of sets fill an integral role in the life of a theme. And while none of them will probably win any Best in the West awards, they still deserve their time in the spotlight. I'll share my thoughts on the importance of small sets towards the end, but first, let's take a closer look at these. 2845 Indian Chief was released in 1997, as were all of today's sets. Boasting 20 whole pieces actually makes this the second largest of the 4 sets we're going to look at, and as you can see, we get one minifigure here. I know him as the Medicine Man, but the set is called Indian Chief, so I'm guessing that's because this was actually a promo release in various European countries. And as we all know, back then LEGO had all kinds of fun giving things different names in different regions. He's still the same great design we saw in the Boulder Cliff Canyon showcase, with his buffalo headdress, highly detailed torso and legs, and a unique face print. I mentioned in that review that I'm not a huge fan of the more realistic eyes and nose here, but I do love the face paint details. One thing I also appreciate about him specifically is that he's the only member of the tribe who can turn his head in a normal fashion. Everyone else has hair or headgear that prevents much movement. For such a small set, he's equipped with quite a few accessories: a bow, quiver, spear with feather, and one of these fantastic shields featuring his insignia. This small statue is a great little addition to any of the other sets in the sub-theme, and it's so simple it's a good bet you can probably build it from your own extra pieces, which is exactly what I did. I'm not entirely sure what it's supposed to represent. To me, it kinda looks like a duck wearing a red jacket and blue galoshes. Being made up of such common parts, it's very easy to replicate in different colors, adding some variety to your village. Brickset has the average used value at $11, which is a bit high in my opinion. I'd say a good 90% of that value is the Medicine Man and his accessories. My advice is, if you already have this stuff from any of the other sets, just bricklink these parts if you don't have them already. Rolling along like a tumbleweed through Gold City Junction, we come to 2846 Indian Kayak. There's just no way to sugarcoat it. This is the worst set in the sub-theme. Maybe all of Western. Made up of 18 pieces, it was another European promo, and again, it includes one minifigure. I understand that it's meant to be a kayak, and the designer actually did a fairly decent job conveying that with the parts available at the time, but I'm a much bigger fan of our other watercraft option. I know this wouldn't fit into a polybag size set, but to me, this kinda looks like our little friend is riding a log. And perhaps that's actually what it's meant to be, a kayak hewn from a log. And believe it or not, this actually came in a box, not a polybag. I kinda miss these tiny little boxes. These 2x3 curved bricks make up all the shaping here, and we have a clip on each side for holding a spear and an axe, or tomahawk, however you want to see it. Further advancing my log theory is the fact that there's a bit of foliage hanging off the rear. But if that truly is the case, I'd prefer to see these parts in brown, like the canoe. The main reason to want this set would have been this guy right here. While he's far from rare, appearing in 4 of the 7 sets in the sub-theme, you can never have too many members of the tribe. For accessories, he's given a bow, quiver, and paddle. If you like this, I'd again recommend just bricklinking the parts, since the average used value is actually sitting at $12, a dollar higher than the last set. There's nothing special here besides the minifigure, and I think mine was less than $1 to complete. Despite being the smallest set in the entire Western theme, 6709 Tribal Chief would have been a fantastic pickup in 1997. Retailing for just $4, this follows a trend of the time in which important characters were often offered in very affordable sets. Adventurers had a few of these as well, with the highlight being a Chew, who had a retail price of $3. Now, in new condition, he can be a $100+ figure. The Chief is my favorite minifig in the sub-theme, and that's all thanks to this incredible headdress. It truly is a little piece of 90s Lego art. The printing here was ahead of its time, especially when you take into account the fact that a few years after this, we'd be seeing complex molded character heads for Star Wars, and they wouldn't get any printing. If you grew up in the US like me, you might be surprised to learn that in some countries he was named Big Chief Rattlesnake, which I like quite a bit. His face print is unique to his character, as is his torso and legs. For accessories, he gets a spear with 2 feathers, a tomahawk, and another one of these beautiful shields, this time with his insignia of the running horse. Speaking of horses, a trusty steed is a must for surviving the unforgiving landscape of the West, and this one seems to fit the bill. Emblazoned with detail from head to toe, it's yet another example of the care and love that went into this sub-theme. Again, I'm not a big fan of the realistic eyes, but there's no denying that this was one of the best animals LEGO put out in the 90s. I love the blanket details here, and when it's time to give him a rest, we're provided with the appropriately colored brick and plate to fill in the gap. To round out the scene, a prickly bush and a rattlesnake are included. The snake mold was originally developed for the Native American sets, and it's still in use today. This is definitely an add-on type set, since there really isn't much building to do, but I still think it would be a great addition to your collection. And finally, last but certainly not least, we have 6718 Raindance Ridge. Weighing in at 71 pieces, this once $8 set is the perfect start to any Wild Western adventure. It teeters on the edge of what I'd typically consider to be a small set, but there's not quite enough meat on its bones for a standalone video, so here we are. We get 2 minifigures, both of which we've already seen today, and they're each given plenty of ways to defend themselves. A horse is again included, but this time in white. It would have been very easy for LEGO to just slap the same printing on a different colored horse, but once again, they went the extra mile. As you can see, 2 unique designs are present. Since our minifigures come with more accessories than they can hold, the saddle is perfect for storing the extras. We also have the brick and plate in green this time. This small statue is our side build. It seems to me that this is meant to represent a landmark or territory marker, since it's too small to be and lacks the characteristics of a totem pole. And you could either see this gray bird as part of the carving or as a real bird just hanging out. Fun fact, the 1x1 round brick in brown only came in 24 different sets. That may sound reasonable, but you'll find the reddish brown versions in about 500 sets. Just some useless trivia for you there. And that brings us to the main build. As you guys may or may not know, I love LEGO terrain. Having a physical setting for our minifigures to play around in always sparks my imagination more than any other type of build. And this little slice of wilderness captures the spirit of the untamed frontier remarkably well, despite its relatively small size. At the right, we'll find one of these fantastic tree stump elements, in which our minifigures can hide out. It's just crazy to me that these were only ever found in 4 sets, all of them from the Indian sub-theme. They're so unique and useful, you'd think LEGO would have found somewhere else to employ them, but nope. I appreciate the little branch here, and also the ability to hang our weapons along the edge. The build is split in half by this little stream. Depending on where you lived, you may have known this set not as Raindance Ridge, but by its possibly more appropriate name of Medicine Spring. The stream starts with a little waterfall courtesy of a 3x4 slope, which flows nicely into these tiles. We're very accustomed to seeing tiled off sections these days, but this was actually pretty special at the time, and it serves a purpose, which we'll get to in a minute. The rock work here is a little blockier than I'd prefer, but that's easily remedied with a few slopes. I do appreciate the different bits of foliage and what appears to be another stump or part of a root system here. We have a ladder leading up to the titular ridge, but this is one very rare instance in which I feel like the ladder actually detracts from the look of the set. I usually comment on the need for more ladders or stairs in old sets, but here I'd rather see some well-placed rocks for the minifigures to climb. Like this. I know this would have raised the piece count, but barely. And finally, the main play feature. Remember the snake slides in Boulder Cliff Canyon? Well, apparently it's a pretty common sight in this neck of the West because that's exactly what we have here. 2 snakes are included, and you can load them onto this chute, which is built on a hinge, and when you raise it up, the snake slides through the opening in the rocks and down the stream. The tiles here allow for a nice, smooth transition. It's far from the best play feature I've ever seen. I still think the dynamite explosions from Sheriff's Lockup and Gold City Junction claim that spot, but it's not nothing, and it's fun to mess around with. So if you're just thinking about collecting these sets, I'd say this would be a great way to dip your toe in. An average resale value of $35 to $40 might surprise you, but keep in mind you're getting some pretty cool parts, like the tree stump, minifigures, and of course, the horse. So now that we've seen them, what makes these so important? Look, we all love big sets. We all love getting lots of parts and minifigures and having tons of play features, and there's nothing wrong with that. But a simple fact of life is that not everyone can afford to buy their kids big sets, and if it wasn't for things like this, some kids may have never gotten to experience LEGO at all. I know they were a huge part of my childhood collection. The largest thing I ever got back then was Bandit's Secret Hideout, and it was a big deal to me, but thanks to my handful of small sets, I was able to build out the world and unlock all kinds of new storytelling possibilities. These were like little booster packs for the imagination. And even if this was all you or your family could afford, it still gave you the opportunity to experience the delight of building and playing with LEGO. And perhaps it paved the way for a lifelong love of these silly little plastic bricks. I'd be willing to bet that, due to price alone, way more kids played with this compared to this. And therefore, you could argue, this actually brought more joy to the world. So perhaps in a way, these represent some of the most important sets LEGO produces. Perhaps in a way they are truly great. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Always remember that value is subjective and takes many forms, both big and small. And every set out there is cherished by someone. I'd love to hear about your favorite small set in the comments. A very special thanks to the members of Club Maniac, whose generous support made this video possible. We'll be traveling west again soon, but until then, this has been Jamie for Trick Bricks. As always, take care and play well.